Oh, good.
We were streaming and we're recording.
Okay, we're live, Mark.
That's last one.
Do you have an extra agenda?
Thank you.
I think we, okay. Alrighty, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the regular board meeting. Today is Monday, March 8, 2021. And I'd like to call this meeting to order. Okay, Madam Clerk, if you could do the roll call, please.
Trustee Claudia Swastiki. Trustee Andrew Butler.
Here.
Trustee Manuel Godina.
Here.
Vice Chairman Travis Manning.
Here.
And Madam Chair Maricela Pesina.
Here. I'd like to invite everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you may be seated. All right, so at this time, if we could have the clerk let us know about the meeting agenda postings, please.
Madam Chair Pesina and trustees, I request the approval of the Board of Trustees' regular board meeting agenda posting for Monday, March 8th, 2021. The original agenda was posted on Friday, March 5th, 2021 at 3:18 p.m. The agenda was posted on the school district website and at the Caldwell District Office.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. I would like to ask for a motion to approve and accept the agenda postings.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve and accept the agenda postings for March 8th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. I'd like to ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, trustees? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries. All right, and then next on the agenda is the information item report. So Dr. French, if you would, please.
Sure, and thank you, Madam Chair and trustees. I will just defer my report. We'll be talking about the strategic plan. And Dr. Sanchez is here, so that is later on the agenda. So that's what I'd like to discuss at that time.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, and I know that by today at 12 o'clock, we had no patron input, and I don't think we had anybody come in, Keely, for patron input.
Correct, no patron.
Okay, thank you. So, and just so patrons know, anybody who wishes to have input at this meeting must submit their email to Keely, our clerk, by the day of the meeting at 12 p.m. And any written comments must include your name, address, and telephone number. Okay, so we will move on to the consent agenda. Let's see, after reviewing the consent agenda, trustees, I would like to ask to approve all of the following items by single vote unless one of you would like to have an item removed to be considered and discussed later during the meeting.
Madam Chair, I'd ask to remove item E, personnel report.
Okay, we will remove item E and put it in the agenda at a later time. Any other item? No? Can I ask for a motion to approve the rest of them?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda excluding item E.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. I'd like to ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, trustees? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries. All right, and now we are at the regular agenda. And at this time, board, I would like, I just like to mention that we will be moving item B forward, just because, so we can discuss a strategic plan in the beginning. It isn't, we're not moving a huge amount, it's just within that, regular agenda, okay? So if we could at this time, Dr. French, if you could let us know how the strategic plan is coming along.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair and Trustees. So Dr. Sanchez is here, and I invited him to come tonight, which is exciting. I haven't seen Dr. Sanchez for a long time in person. So it's good to see him. And just to give an update to the board on where we are with the strategic plan and the committees that have been meeting.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Sanchez, please.
Madam Chair, thank you, and to the Board of Trustee members and Dr. French, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to share with you our progress about the important work that the Strategic Planning Committee has been doing over the course of the last few months. I'm going to first begin by talking about the composition of the Strategic Planning Committee. I think it's significant to acknowledge that the committee is comprised of 20 people, a diverse group that represents teachers, administrators, community members, business owners, students, and teachers. In that group, as we come together every month for our strategic planning meeting, it's important to pause and to think about the diverse perspectives that each one of those team members brings, whether it's a student, a parent, or a community member, our teachers, our administrators, or boards of trustees. We have two members of the board, two board of trustee members that are part of that team. They each have an important voice, and they each have an important perspective that speak into this process. As we move forward, this committee provides the foundation for discussions and decisions that we'll bring forward where we need guidance or direction from the board. This evening, we don't have any decisions that we need. This is just for information only. But before I go into that piece, I want to just end with my remarks around the composition of the team with this in mind, that while we have a strategic planning committee that's comprised of 20 members, throughout the strategic planning process, the intent is to bring larger community population groups into the process at different times. So we may be going out to seek input from a larger population of students or parents or community members throughout the process, so we gain their perspective and their insight on whether we're talking about the mission, the vision, the values, our goals and our objectives. That engagement is designed so all throughout our process, we're getting that input and feedback from all throughout our community. So this evening, the highlight really is the important work. What some will argue is the most important piece of the strategic planning process, and that's the values. And the values always come before the mission and vision. And the values are those fundamental beliefs that inform and drive behaviors and set a culture. And so in the read ahead packet, there is a worksheet that I think it's up here on the screen, where you see a side-by-side comparison of the four groups. Though each of those four groups are comprised of those 20 individuals that I talked about earlier that form our strategic planning team. And this matrix captures the key takeaways and the emerging themes as it relates to the value set that you see right here, and the mission and the vision. We're not there yet in terms of having a final restated and revised value set and mission set and a vision statement. We're going to meet again on Wednesday, and we're going to move the group toward that end, so that at the end of our time Wednesday, it will be a restated mission, vision, and value set that Dr. French can bring back to the board for your consideration, review, and ultimately your approval. That's an important piece, because the next step in the planning process is to go out to the larger community and get their input as they speak into the value set, the mission, and the vision. I'm going to pause there because we have two members of the Board of Trustees tonight that are part of that planning team, as well as Dr. French and other members of the staff, and give them the opportunity just to speak into their experience so far into this process. So I'll pause and let any member of the team that's present with us tonight share.
Trustee, Vice Chair Manning, how about you? Would you like to?
I guess I don't know that I have a lot to say. I mean, can you guys hear me through my mask? My mask is kind of muffling me, I know. So we've met several times as a committee, and so we're still getting to know each other and the process and the procedure, and I think things are going well.
Thank you, Trustee Manning.
Trustee Butler?
Yeah, I think the, for me, seeing the formation of the groups and the different perspectives coming together, as you look through the worksheets that we've come up with, there's some that are right in line with each other and then some that are very distant. And so it's going to be interesting to see how we all work together to come up and come together to decide on a collaborative effort to come to a unity decision on that. But I love the process that's in place for it.
Thank you, Trustee Butler. And his remarks, I think, serve as a reminder to all of us about the power of diversity and having diverse perspectives speak into this process. And so I look forward to our time on Wednesday as we jump right into getting all of those perspectives and all those voices toward a consensus. Dr. French, I don't know.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and trustees, Dr. Sanchez. I think it's exciting. And last week we shared out, each group shared out, their thoughts on the values and their thoughts on the mission and the vision statement. And I would feel comfortable saying that I see that changing slightly, because I think there's a recognition that, we are a unique and awesome school district. And there were many conversations around our mission statement really needs to be a call to a mission statement. And that's something that you could read on just any school district's website. And the conversation was a little intense a bit, in a good way, where, especially in a virtual setting, the feedback where we have a couple community members who are part of this, and thankfully they were willing to just jump in and provide feedback and ask questions. And I think we'll be excited to share with you what is generated by this group and then taking it to the larger population.
Madam Chair and Dr. French, thank you. In terms of decisions, the next time that we come before the Board of Trustees, it will be a decision for approval on the value set, the mission, and the vision. Tonight was just to provide information on our important work toward that end. So with that concludes my update, pending any other questions or comments.
Okay. Trustees, any questions for Dr. Sanchez? Okay. All right,
Madam
well,
Chair, Board, thank you so much.
We appreciate your time,
Thank you,
Dr. Sanchez. Okay, thank you very much. It looks like we're coming along with our strategic plan, so that's exciting. All right, and let's see. Next on our agenda is we're going to go ahead and go back to the top, and that's going to be our district continuing school operation plan for 2020 and 2021 school year. And so this is information, and we also have, I think, maybe one item that we will like to act on, but let's just, trustees, as a reminder, to stick to what we have on the board docs, on the agenda, and if we need to discuss whatever articles that are attached, documents that are attached to our board docs. So Dr. French, would you like to help lead us out?
Thank you, Madam Chair and trustees. So if you'll recall, last week we had reached out, you had asked for me to reach out to Principal Wilson and Karen Cameron in regards to online options for students who were hesitant or did not want to return to school in person, but would we have online options for them and so they continue their learning. So tonight, we've invited both Principal Wilson and Karen Cameron to speak. And I can see that Karen is here with us. And, oh, and so is Anita. Okay. So if you would like, we could start with the online options for the 612 students. We've really focused, Principal Wilson is focused on the 912. We need to still vet out what the 6-8 option would look like. But Anita can speak to the 912 option this evening, and then we'll have Karen Cameron speak to the K5.
Okay, all right. Principal Wilson, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair, trustees. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thanks for having us here. So I appreciate the expression of the board and the need to give students and parents options for their education as we move back into full-time in-person instruction. And so we've had an online option throughout the whole school year for high school, and that's been through the Caldwell Online Academy. And the platform that we have used is IDLA. And so probably most people are familiar with IDLA. So that's a partnership, and Karen's worked really hard to collaborate with the IDLA folks to make that a seamless transition. We've worked out a lot of kinks. I know seamless might not be quite the word I would use, but it has been productive. It's been beneficial. So students have been successful in that online program. IDLA doesn't talk to Skyward exactly every day. And so we've had to work that out, and Caleb's been very helpful in getting that done, and our counselors have worked to make that happen. But IDLA has a timeline in which students have to sign up for classes, and then they're on a schedule. So there's not flexibility with that, and we are not able to at this time add any students. So when people say, well, students have an online option in high school, they don't. The time has really it's gone by for them to get into IDLA at this time, which is the platform that we have been using. So we have another platform that we use for credit recovery, and we also use it for Advanced Opportunities Summer School for original credit, and that is Apex. And you might have heard of Apex. We use it extensively at Caldwell High School, mostly for credit recovery. But in summer school, it's been used for some foreign languages and math classes in the summer. The teachers use that curriculum to deliver the content that students need, and Apex provides a framework, guides them through modules and tutorials, and then they take assessments through Apex. So Apex is flexible, and we can get students in at any time. And so Dr. French, Jody Mills, Karen and I and others have been working to establish what courses might be the most appropriate in Apex for both credit recovery and original credit, working through, can we match those up to classes that we already have? And so really we have a good option now established for students that with the prospect of coming back to school full-time might not be an option for them because they have serious or significant health concerns. And so they do really need an online option. And so we're able to provide that through Apex, and we will be able to do it with our teachers. We will be able to have that in Skyward. The grades will be regular, just like regular grades. So that's kind of the synopsis. I'll let Karen add in any details. But that's our plan. And we have a really good plan with a full set of core classes and electives that students can take between now and the end of the school year.
Okay, thank you, Principal Wilson. Trustees, do you have any questions for Principal Wilson?
I've got one question.
Trustee, Vice Chairman.
What's the latest date somebody can sign up for a class with Apex?
That's a great question. Madam Chair, Trustee Manning, I believe, is the one that asked that question. So we have started communicating with parents about how they can sign up for this. And this is a high school, the one that I'm talking about is a high school option. Karen will talk about middle school. They can sign up now, and they should have an email today that tells them how to sign up. But if they don't know how, they can just contact Karen at Caldwell High School. And we have a goal date. We would like them signed up by the 18th of March, because this is really fourth quarter credits, and we need to be done by the end of the school year. And the teachers will be working to establish a pacing calendar for these courses. It won't be work at your own pace. IDLA is not work at your own pace, and Apex won't be either. It'll be on a calendar. For the most part, that's for original credit. For credit recovery, there is some opportunity to work at their own pace. And so we have established that the 2nd of April is the absolute drop dead date that a student would be able to be added and be able to complete a full course of equivalent credits to what they would be getting in-person live instruction. Does that answer your question?
That's good, thank you.
Okay. And then trustee Godina, you have a question?
Yeah, Madam Chair and Principal Wilson, how many teachers do you foresee on the Apex classes?
Madam Chair, Trustee Godina, we had a wonderful response from teachers who were willing to take this on in addition to teaching a full class load of 120 students a day. So that was impressive. Karen and I have been working through, without having total enrollment numbers yet, we're not able to establish exactly, but we have plenty of teachers, that's for sure. We have them in every subject area, science, social studies, math, English, and electives. And so I was really pleased with the number of teachers. I don't remember off the top of my head. I feel like it was about 21 teachers responded. So
That's great news.
it's a good response, yeah.
Thank you, Principal Wilson, and all the teachers involved. Thank you very much. Well, all the teachers, I should say.
Any other questions for Principal Wilson?
Yeah, I just have one clarifying question. Principal Wilson, I just wanted to ask, so will Apex be 100% virtual, or will those students have to have a need to come to the buildings at all?
Madam Chair, Trustee Butler, they will be all virtual. We do have a procedure that with credit recovery that the students take their final assessments in person, and we will establish some type of arrangement for students to be able to do that at the end of these courses. But we will be able to do it all, we will be able to do it virtually. I was going to give you an example in summer school when we've done it all online. The students do have to come in to do some speaking. When we've done foreign languages, they have to come in and actually speak with the teacher. But now that we have learned all of this wonderful new technology and we have things like Zoom and Google Meets, they will be able to do any speaking that they have to do online. But they do have to do their final assessment in person. It has to be proctored. And that's much like IDLA has the same procedure where students have to be proctored on their final assessment.
I guess one other question is when would the start date for the classes begin? Because I know high school, you guys are actually a week ahead. You guys start the new term the week before spring break rather than after. So when would these Apex classes be able to begin?
Yes, so we anticipate starting them as soon as possible. We actually have developed an online orientation, which is similar to what we use in summer school. And students will be able to next week, if they're signed up, they will be able to start on that orientation, which will be just an introduction to what the expectations are for online learning, all online learning. And then they'll be able to dive into the content. So it will be, you're exactly right. Our quarter begins on Monday, And they may be starting a little later because we are allowing students to still sign up, but we'll be able to manage that. We'll be able to get that, get them going as soon as possible. So it could be that if they signed up this week, they would be starting next week on their orientation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess we have Ms. Cameron to speak to us, and we're hoping either add information to what Ms. Wilson said, or talk to us about the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so the only thing I wanted to add to what Ms. Wilson had to say was, and she may have said this and I missed it, all of our APEX courses are taught asynchronously, meaning there's no teacher-led instruction, but all of these teachers will set up office hours for tutoring throughout the week and weekend, and then they'll be required to answer emails every day and get back to students that have questions. So there won't be like a live Google Meet going on, which is what we've been doing through hybrid. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that and is clear on that. Okay. So I've been in communication with the principals at the middle schools, and we're following the same system there with using APEX, and they're pretty excited with that. We actually had multiple middle school teachers reach out showing interest in doing that. So we're really excited to partner with them and use the same strategy. They'll have fewer classes that they'll be responsible for, of course, because they're younger, but it'll be taught the same way through an asynchronous platform using APEX. The schedule will be provided by the teacher, and then tutoring and email response will be available throughout the week. And then our K-5 program is still going. So we have, we only use IDLA for our 3rd grade students, but my online teachers in COA have said, you know, if there's a 3rd grader who needs us, we'll step up and we'll make sure that they get their 3rd grade education. So I have a great group of ladies that I work with, and super excited to be able to just provide any opportunity that is needed from any student or family within the district for the rest of the school year.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that. We appreciate the willingness of the teachers to help out with this during this time. So we thank you. Anything additionally, Dr.
Just,
Frank?
Madam Chair and Trustees, Karen, have you had many elementary students, once it was announced that we would be back, did you have very many students seek the online option?
I've had 4 students reach out to me wanting to move into the online, 4 families. And we've been able to make that transition smooth. Yeah.
And I guess I'm saying at high school, I visited with Anita earlier. There was an anticipation. We knew if maybe possibly 13 students, there could be more.
I think the last we checked today, there were 19. And then since the email went out to families this evening, I have about 6 emails that have popped into my inbox asking questions about it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it. Trustees, any comments for Ms. Cameron? Questions, comments?
Just a quick comment. I'm just glad that we have that option for our kids that want to utilize that online option. Thank you very much for heading that up.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, ladies. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Being able to present to us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair and Trustees, the other request by the board last week was to go back to the task force, instructional task force, in regards to Wednesdays, and to have the task force meet to discuss what does a Wednesday, the intent of that, and then provide feedback on the best use of a Wednesday. And Jody has met with them. That was attached. That's in board docs, if you've been able to see that. And then if Jody wants to speak to the task force.
Madam Chair, trustees, I believe Keely attached it. It's the proposed recommendations from the instructional task force. And just a quick background, we met on the 5th. There was 26 folks there. We did do a Google Meet. There, all of the schools were represented, as well as representation from the migrant department, second language learners, the students with disabilities, and with the exception of, I'm going to say, just a handful of folks, they would like, when we go, if we go to green or category 1, the recommendation for the board tonight is to consider a 4-day plus 1 digital day, similar to what we're currently doing in hybrid, to maintain. The reasons for that, in no particular order of priority, is the first one has to do with, we've done a great job this year utilizing the technology and the expertise and gaining expertise within the digital platform for both teachers, staff, parents, and students, and we don't want to lose the ground we've gotten. So we want to continue to be able to practice that in a very virtual setting. The other thing has to do with, we want to reconfirm again, all of us feel very strongly that Digital Day Wednesday is an instructional day. We came to the board the 14th of December with recommendations, and we do about Wednesday's board with expectations for parents, students, and staff. And we feel of just reconfirming with the leadership teams at each of the buildings about what Wednesday is intended to do, as we've outlined in the plan on page 19, that will also help reconfirm the importance of Wednesday and the benefit that we can get from Wednesday being a digital day through remote learning. And then the last one has to do, and I think we've heard from several principals as well as everybody on the task force, that's a great opportunity for the small groups to still be able to come to school in a in-person based on what the building leadership needs to do within the small groups, the interventions, students that are struggling at the high schools with possibly failing grades to get more intentional help on those Wednesdays. So the recommendation of the task force, if the board was to move us back into category 1, is to do a 4+1 model for this year only.
Okay. All right, trustees, do you have any questions for Ms. Mills regarding the recommendation for that Wednesday?
I guess maybe a clarification. So last week we did move to a category 1, is that correct? Or do we consider, does the district consider themselves in a category 1 or not?
Madam Chair and trustees, so last week we, Canyon County is still in yellow, which would be considered our category 2. We agreed that all students would be moved back. I mean, they would attend in person starting March 29. As that would mean, so when they start attending in person, that's kind of like our green. The county is not in green at this time. There's anticipation that we could move that way. So, I mean, and we've seen the trending numbers, it's trending down. And so I would say the county is not in category 1. However, we would be back in school as though we were in category 1, still following the yellow category 2 guidelines, right? I think what Jody is sharing with you is, when the county goes to green, so we anticipate they'll go to green, or let's just say they will. The task force is recommending that we stay using the category 2 use of Wednesday. So even if we're back in a green and everything is basically resumes as normal, except we in green, we said you will wear masks even with the county is in green on the schools, right? That the recommendation is to allow the teachers to continue to use that Wednesday as though we were still in the category 2. I hope that it makes sense. We did not say we were in green, but we are acting as though we are on March 29. We anticipate the county will continue to move that way. And as you saw on the demographic or the mapping last week, our school district is in green based on the county's breakout of all districts and COVID incident rates and positivity, if you remember that. But the county still is in yellow.
Correct.
Okay, I hope that it is very
Yeah.
confusing. Vice Chair Manning, I don't know if I even answered your question. I'm looking for assurance, or I can start over.
No, I'm processing. I'm just looking again at the map of the plan on page 19, and I'm just sort of mulling it over. And thinking about, with no comments as well. So I guess I'm just thinking,
Okay, please, again, I'll try to do my best to.
you're doing great.
Okay, but does everyone understand we're in yellow in the county?
Yes.
Schools in green.
The school, as on March 29th, we will be acting as though the county is in green.
Uh-huh.
However, we are still following a lot of the yellow, like the field trips, no.
Correct.
Concerts, no. We have said a lot of no's just at this point in time. Could it change? As possibly it could,
Mhm.
right? Maybe we could host a concert. I don't know. At this point, we've said no.
Madam Chair, too, if I may, the
Yes.
other recommendations on that page have to do, for some reason, if we're still in category 2, elementary principals would like the change in the language to deal with scheduling. Currently, right now, on page 8 of the plan, in category 2 or yellow, it says that if we're to have specials, it's either outside or in the individual general classroom, gen ed classrooms. The elementary principals would like the language to be changed to where we could go to their specialty areas, which would be the music room, the library, the gym, the computer lab. But also the caveat to there is there would be additional time given to those specials to make sure that there's protocols for cleaning, sanitizing, as well as transfer to maintain congregation. The second recommendation also is on that page, is walk to workshops. Currently in yellow, it states that there will be no walk to workshops. The elementary principals, again, would like your consideration to change that to where if protocols can be implemented within the individual schools for the walk to workshops while in category 2, they would like permission to do that, and we would change the plan with the language that I have listed there. Then, when we are in category 1, it's throughout the document, we would like to add the language as much as possible when it comes to maintaining a 6-foot physical distancing. We're going to do the best we can, but we know now by adding an additional 5,800 kids back into the system, that at all times 6 feet will not be, and we've never, I guess, maintained that 6 feet would be. And so we want to make sure our plan practices or follows our practice. And we will, as much as possible, maintain 6 feet, but it can't be guaranteed.
Yeah, and Madam Chair and Trustees, we've had that was an in-depth discussion, that there would be no way to have physical distancing with all students back. I think we just want to make sure it's in writing and we have documented that.
Correct. Good. Okay. So then, trustees, just so you know, tonight we will be making a motion and voting on accepting the recommendation. So do you have any questions right now on these recommendations that have been proposed to us from the task force? Any additional questions?
Madam Chair and Trustees,
Yes.
the motion, it's not an all or nothing.
Uh-huh.
So you could go through and say, that scheduling, we think it should be different, right? So does that make sense? These are all
Yes.
recommendations. And so to me, I see 4 different recommendations tonight.
Okay.
And
Yeah, it's not bundled by any stretch.
Okay. So is there any of it that trustees that you have concerns about or questions about? I don't know, do you?
So I guess I
want
do have a question,
Yes, go ahead.
and hopefully this piggybacks on Vice Chair Manning's question. So with that motion, so are we changing what the yellow means then to have all students in the yellow? So is that what that has done then? And so we're changing yellow to include that every student is in the classroom 4 days a week instead of the mix, which is what we were going for to begin with.
And Madam Chair and Trustee Butler and trustees, I would say basically what we've done, and we're bringing students back while the county is in yellow. So they're coming back, all of them. And we're trying to make plans based on what did we say are yes or no's in yellow? The field trips, the concerts, this athletics, and so we're just addressing this one at a time. It's as though we're back, it's almost like we're green because everyone's back, but really we're all back and we're still in counties yellow. With an anticipation that it will move to green and the county will possibly move to green in the next few weeks or next several weeks. Does that answer that question?
It does. And I guess with that understanding, then with the red, we would then go back to fully virtual.
That's what our plan is.
So we're going to lose that mix. We're going to lose that hybrid.
Unless the board says, you know what, you're moving back to hybrid. Nothing's possible.
That's still an option. Yeah.
Let's hope not.
Right, I mean, I'm
So
sorry,
that's-
Madam Chair, Trustees, that could be, I mean, right now we're in yellow and we're saying we're bringing all students back. If something should happen and the board feels that we need to go back to a hybrid, we would have a meeting.
Yeah.
And
So living
we would know how, we would know that some people will be not so happy and some will be thankful and, but the board still has the right to move us back to a hybrid in that category 2. The board has the right to put us in a hybrid in category red in 3, right? So it's just a discussion.
Okay. Follow-up question, just Robert?
I think that made it as clear as mud for me, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Well, Madam Chair, Trustees,
Yes. I do understand, yeah.
we were in hybrid when we were in category 3. So county was in red and we moved to a hybrid. In like mid-January, if you'll recall. We gave 2 weeks after the New Year's, the celebrations, and moved to a hybrid, although the county was still in a red.
So would it be easier to do a motion on each section? Trustees, would you like to do that? And that way we can, like, for example, are you prepared to do, to vote on the first one, all areas that identify physical distancing that in category 1, add the language of as much as possible to maintaining 6 feet physical distancing? Is there any questions about that? Are you good with that?
We do not want to mislead people to think that, look,
Yes, that we,
because as much as possible will be very limited
yes,
in our reality.
okay.
I know elementary principals are working on how to do their potting for the lunches. And they're trying to figure out how they can make that happen a little, with that 6 feet as much as possible, but it will be limited, those opportunities.
And Principal Sacagawea Webster kind of talked to us about that in the cafeteria.
Yes.
Okay, so would like to ask for a motion for that first. All areas that identify physical distancing. Language.
I have a question. So
Okay.
does that need to be changed for category 2 as well, where we say as much as possible, or is that already?
Madam
somewhat
Chair.
written into it?
Yes.
Trustee Butler,
If we're-
the way the plan is crafted is it says that if it's not stated, we will follow everything that's in low or minimal spread. And so by changing it in category 1, it implies it's going to be, it infers it's going to be category 2. and category
Okay,
3.
that's what I'm quickly trying to read,
Okay,
catch up on there. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the new language in category 1, to add the language of as much as possible to maintaining 6 feet physical distancing.
okay, I have a motion. I'd like to ask for a second.
Second,
Okay. Any further discussion, trustees? Okay, so let's take that for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. All right, and then the second one is the scheduling. So, and it talks about category 2, replace current language, that the category 2, in category 2, replace current language with students will participate in specials, which means that elementary school will provide, I'd like to ask for a motion. If somebody wants to make the motion and read that, great.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve scheduling to allow for student participation in Special.
All right.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? No, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed, nay? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, and then the motion. Pardon me? And then, the next one is the walk to workshops.
Madam Chair, I move to approve and accept the recommendation for the walk-to workshops in category 2, replacing the current language, but schools may opt to provide walk-to workshops.
Okay, I have a motion. I'd like to ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, we'll go for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed, nay? All right, that vote, that passes unanimously. So thank you. All right, so now for that second half of the page. Are we in any further questions on that one, comments? And if not, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the proposed recommendation from the instructional task force for the in-person learning model in category 1.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the proposed recommendations from the instructional task force in person learning model in category 1.
Okay,
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And so this is the,
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, clarification.
uh-huh,
Can we add this year only?
yes, okay, so can you do that for this year only?
We need to do that change for the rest of the motions that we made earlier.
No, I think it's
Madam
just.
Chair, my concern is if we're in category 1 next year, the expectation that I would like to revisit the fact that we don't necessarily have to be in the 4+1 model next year. This is for the remainder of this current year.
Yeah, that, and I think, Madam Chair, interested, I think, Jody, I just want to make sure, so if we move into green, we all understand that we're saying, that it means we're going to stay 4+1 through May. So that, okay, and that, but next year, that is not the intent. We do not intend to be a 4+1. We expect to be in school 5 days a week with the early release time on Wednesdays.
Okay,
And I just want to, so we want to come back to revisit this
okay, yes.
this year,
Mhm.
going on to next year. I appreciate you saying that.
Do we need to change our emotions? Is that what you're asking?
Well, once it becomes part of the operations, this does say the school year 2020, 2021, so.
Madam Chair, Trustee Butler, absolutely. What I would hate is for the world to hear that now Caldwell is a 4+1 and not hear that it's only for the 2021 school year. And then we're about to come back to you folks and talk about a calendar. And I would hate for the misunderstanding to say now that the Caldwell School District is a 4-day week school district because of this.
Yes, okay. Okay, that's your name.
So I'll amend my motion. I move that we accept the remainder of the recommendation, the proposed recommendations from the instructional task force for in-person learning in category 1, just for the 2020-21 school year.
Okay,
Second.
all right, okay. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the task force meeting. I know that y'all don't have anything else to do. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Madam Chair, Trustees, thank you for clarifying. I think it's important that everyone understands for the next 2 months, that's what it will be, but there's every expectation that we are a 5-day-a-week school district with an early release on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate all the other information that was added to our board docs. It's, useful information, a lot of reading material, but thank you. And also to keeping our plan on continuing school operations plan updated with all the changes in the back, so.
Yeah.
Um,
That's nice.
okay.
Thank you.
So if it is okay, trustees, I'd like to move on to our next, the next agenda item, unless you have something else that you wanted to talk about on this one. All right, so we will rapidly move on. Let's see. Where am I at? C. Okay, so the item C is called for certain bonds 2008A. So Ms. Burton?
Thank you, Madam Chair and trustees. If you'll recall, on February 8th, Eric Herringer from our municipal advisor from Piper Sandler came and made a presentation to the board about the recommendation to call the 2008A bonds effective, start the ball rolling in March. He is on the line if you have additional questions or on the meeting, if you had additional questions about his presentation. And additionally tonight, we have Chelsea Porter, who is an attorney with Holly Troxel, who is our bond attorneys. Chelsea is here to present the resolution to the board. So if you don't have any questions for Eric, we'll turn it over to Chelsea.
Trustees, do you have any questions for Eric? No? Okay. All right, Chelsea, if you could, please.
Madam Chair, trustees, my name is Chelsea Porter, and as April said, I work at Holly Troxel, and we do serve as the district's bond counsel. I am going to attempt to share my screen here. Can everybody see that?
And Chelsea, just so you know, the board has seen, they had the opportunity to review the resolution. It was included in our board docs from Friday. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah, just want you to be aware of that.
So then what I've pulled up here is just the resolution that was included. It's a short resolution. And if you recall from Eric's presentation, essentially what the district is doing here is taking money that it currently has in its bond fund and paying off bonds early. Some of the district's bonds are eligible to be called and redeemed prior to their stated maturity date. And so for financial planning reasons, the district is considering doing that. In order to do that, really all we need to do is adopt this short resolution that would authorize the district superintendent and chief financial officer together to work with Piper Sandler and the district's trustee, bond trustee, who is the Bank of New York Mellon, to transfer funds on April 14th, which is the date, well, a few days before April 14th, I suppose, because we are looking to redeem those bonds on April 14th. Attached to this resolution is a form of notice that we will also send to the trustee tomorrow in the event the district approves the resolution tonight. And this notice of redemption will be sent out to the holders of the 2023 bond, the bonds maturing in 2023. And they will be notified that the district will be calling and redeeming those bonds early. And under the bond documents that authorize the 2008A bonds, they are guaranteed 35 days notice. So if we work with the bond trustee and get this published on Wednesday, March 10th, we wait the 35 days and then we can transfer the funds and the bonds will be defeased, at which, well, they'll be redeemed, at which time they will no longer be outstanding debt of the district. And I just threw a lot at you there. Do you guys have any questions?
Any questions, trustees?
Madam Chair, I wondered, can you just review briefly? So if we redeem early, I saw the number somewhere. But by redeeming this bond a couple of years early, we saved, was it 200,000 and something like that? Ms. Burton, I don't know where I saw that number, but
Yeah, this is Eric Herringer. It was 206,000 of interest costs that will be saved by paying them off early.
so just a note to the public, if the board decides to go that direction, just know that we are trying our absolute best to take care of the money that we have as a district and to be fiscally responsible with that. And so thank you, Eric, for that clarification.
You bet.
Mhm. Thank you. Any other questions, trustees? If we have no other questions, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the resolution of calling the 2008 A bonds.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the calling of the 2008 A bonds.
Okay, to approve the resolution. Okay, thank you.
Resolution.
All right, I have a motion. I'd like to ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a second. And any further discussions, trustees, comments, discussion? No? Okay, I'd like to ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries unanimously. So, Ms. Burton, if you'd like to start with the process.
Thank you, Madam Chair, trustees. Dr. French and I will sign the notices and send them to Chelsea and Eric tomorrow. We'll work with them to make sure that we submit the required documents to the fiscal agent, Bank of New York Mellon.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Chelsea, for being here and being open to our questions. We appreciate it.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Okay, good. That felt good. All right. Okay. Yes.
That was easy, right? That's the easy thing we've done. That's what I was thinking. Let's do something fun and easy. Pay off some bonds, save some money.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And now the next item on the agenda is the request to open negotiations for 2021 to 2022. And that was a request by Mr. Walling and Ms. Stiff, and those are the co-presidents for the Caldwell Education Association. So they were just.
Madam
Yes.
Chair,
Go
at this
ahead.
time, I'd like to recuse myself for this
Okay,
item.
you bet. Thank you. We will send you a smoke signal.
Bring in the thanks.
Yeah. Okay. And just so the public knows, Trustee Butler recuses himself because of he does not want to have a conflict with personnel. So, okay. So there was it's a request to open negotiations, and it's just wanting to open negotiations with the association for the 2021-2022 master agreement, so that we can start discussing some of the non-financial articles in April, and then later focus on the financial issues in May. So at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the request to open negotiations.
I've got a question,
Yes.
Madam Chair. So I know there's some legislation that's going through, the may not shall legislation that talks about negotiating with teachers, and I don't think it's passed yet. But if that piece of legislation passes, how might that affect our negotiation process for this coming school year? Do you know that?
Madam Chair, trustees, I think what we will be doing, we'll be receiving counsel from ISBA, and I'm sure the IEA will receive, counsel of their association members. I appreciate the opportunity we have to work with the CEA And I don't want to, I appreciate their input. I think it's a healthy relationship. And I have my concerns about that legislation and the intent of that and why it has been put forth. Right now, I would think we would move based on what the board feels is beneficial to this district. And then if that legislation should pass, we would receive counsel from ISBA. But if the board accepts the request to open, we would be opening negotiations for next year. That's how I see it going forward. If the board accepts that today, we'll take action on it, and we will plan to meet with the CEA. Probably after spring break. We anticipate that the state budgets will not be set for schools until after March 12th. But we would honor that request.
Unless something happens and we receive counsel. Okay. So. Okay. All right. I'd like to ask for a motion to open negotiations.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to open negotiations for the 2021-2022 school year.
Okay, with CEA, okay.
With CEA.
I have a motion, a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries. Motion carries. Okay, so if somebody wants to let trustee back in, trustee Butler.
Welcome back.
Okay, and so now, this was not gonna feel so good, but I mean, things happen. I received on March 4th, a letter from trustee Swastigi, and it was a letter of resignation. Unfortunately, she will be moving out of the district, so that is the reason for a resignation. So at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to approve trustee Claudia Swastigi's resignation for Zone 1.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we accept the resignation of trustee Claudia Solosity.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. And any further discussion? I want to say that, on my behalf, that, I'm really glad that she was part of our board. We learned a lot of insight from her. She had a different perspective, and, I just want to thank her for helping us up here serve during a really hard time in our school year, something that we had never anticipated. So I just want to take this time just to thank her for her service and her hard work and being here with us. So, okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would as well like to thank trustee Solosity for her work in our community and her service to our kids, not only at the district, but all the kids at Caldwell and the people, the patrons of Caldwell, and all of her long, hard work that she's done working with the YMCA. And so we look forward to future partnerships and continuing relationship with trustee Swastigi and the YMCA. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to ask for call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries. And so with that resignation, now I would like to ask for a motion. We now have Zone 1 vacant. So I'd like to ask for a motion to declare Zone 1 vacant. And as a Zone 1 Board of Trustee position for the Caldwell School District, as we have, okay, first of all, let's ask for a motion to declare vacant.
Madam Chair, I move to declare Zone 1 as a vacancy.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, can we
Yes.
maybe talk about the process of what we see going forward as
Yes.
far as the next couple of months and how that might play out? We have a sense of that.
Okay, so what we will do is the process is to seek out individuals interested in this vacant position. we request as a board that individuals complete an application form. This is provided from the district by ISBA. And they are on our board docs this evening. So if you look at our agenda, you can see the attachment there for the application form. And it is to be submitted to the board clerk as a district office, at the district office. At this time, we're gonna meet with ISBA and find out the exact dates. Well, we'll get information from our council for ISBA for the exact dates of when the timeline will be. So we will be letting our patrons know of those dates. But at this time, if you are interested, please, the applications are attached to the board docs in this evening's agenda.
I think we have, it's 90 days to appoint somebody from that zone.
Mhm.
And if we don't appoint somebody by 90 days, then we have another 30 days to appoint somebody from within the district
Mhm.
to serve in that zone. And then if we don't appoint by then the county commission, and then choose our trustees for us. So I guess probably we have a couple of months
Mhm.
to do that. And so that's,
Yes.
yeah, we look forward to having another person on the board that's, has a similar vision and a diversity of ideas and is willing to attend a lot of meetings.
Yes.
And read a lot of, and do a lot of preparation for those meetings.
Yes. So, okay. Thank you. Any additional comments? Good comments.
I think it's
Come on
important
down.
to point out that right now we're looking for a candidate from zone 1 for the
Yes.
first time period.
Mhm.
So they do have to live in zone 1.
Correct.
But
And
we
zone
welcome
one.
any and all.
And zone 1 is listed on the school website.
Mhm. And
Yeah, and you can also check with the county to find out if you're not sure which zone you live in. You can check with the county, and there are a few different ways to do that with the county elections office. And they'll tell you which zone you live in.
yes. And then, on the website, the school district website. And then I don't know if. Okay, all right. And so, but there will be further information coming out to our candidates. So, yeah. Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to bring up also for this candidate that we are looking to appoint at this time. I just would like to let you know that election for that position in zone 1 will be coming up in November. So it's just something to think about. If you have any questions, let us know. You can ask the board clerk. She'll have all the answers from Keely for every one of them. So, but just to give you a heads up, we don't want, we want to let you know what is in the future for this vacancy. So, all right. And so at this time, I'd like to ask for a vote. We have a motion and a second. Okay. I'd like to ask for a vote to declare zone 1 vacant. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay. All right. Motion carries. So as the zone 1 Board of Trustee position for Caldwell School District has been declared vacant as of today. And this is just to clean up the motion. I just hereby move that the board commence the process of seeking out individuals interested in the vacant position. And then, as I stated before, please find the application on our board docs on our tonight's agenda. Okay. So, all righty.
Madam Chair, I have a
Yes.
question. I wonder if we might make that application a little more accessible on the website, so it's not buried in a board doc somewhere. So it's kind of hard to find stuff in there.
And
But maybe if there was a spot on the website that was a little more visible, perhaps that would be a better idea.
We could put it on the website.
Like a link.
I guess I'm concerned. I think it's buried and it's difficult to get in.
Well, I
All of our
mean, for
patrons
us
can
who are
find-
used to getting into board docs, but
Well, it's open for all patrons. I would like to think that board docs is not difficult to get into. If it is, we need to fix that.
Could we send?
well,
out
it's
a-
not labeled, is it
social
labeled as a, I
media?
can't remember what it's labeled as.
Labeled as trustee application.
Could we do a social media?
Yes.
And
So that the
patrons,
links would all be on that page.
and we can make sure it's available easily, and also Keely is available.
Okay.
But because people will, I'm anticipating people will call, because they're gonna
Yes.
wanna know,
Yes.
understanding the amount of time needed to volunteer for this position.
Yes.
I'm sure they'll want to ask Keely, what is
Getting
the,
paid.
what's the expectation?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm available.
Okay, thank you.
I know there's, go ahead, go ahead. I would note that, so in the board docs, it's listed under the regular agenda. It's listed under accepting trustee Claudia Swasky's resignation and then declares on one vacancy. And then you have to look under declaring zone one vacancy, then you find a trustee application. So it's not tremendously buried. I just wonder if we might be able to put it front and center just a little bit more so that in the weeks and months ahead, somebody will say, now which board meeting was that again? And they may not be familiar with how to use the search tools in board docs to find this document that's listed under this one specific agenda item.
Madam Chair, trustees, we'll make sure that it's available.
Okay.
For patrons. It will be on the website, and what we can do is just have a special section that just says trustee zone one opening. Just like we have on other, when there's something you need to click on a survey or.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. That'll make it. Thank you very much. Okay. All righty. Okay, and that brings us to the policy development adoption.
Future, and we
Oh,
also
I'm
have-
sorry, future agenda items. I'm so sorry. Oh, yes. Boy, I just jumped out. Yeah, okay. All right. Any future agenda items, trustees? Are we good? Where we're at? Yeah. Okay. All right, then we'll go to the next one. The placeholder for consent agenda, and that was item E and,
The personnel report.
okay,
And at this time, Madam Chair, I'd like to recuse myself.
okay, thank you.
You're gonna get your steps.
Okay, let's see. Personnel report.
7.
Okay, all righty. So, let's see, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the personnel report unless there's any discussion on it. We can discuss it.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the personnel report.
Okay, I have a motion. Vice Chair Manning,
Second.
okay, all right, I have a motion and a second. And any further discussion?
So so yeah, trustee Butler, because he had a conflict with the personnel report, that's why he stepped down. It wasn't sort of some political theater or he didn't have to use the restroom or
Yes.
anything like that. He's being specific to the ethics of what he, to the personnel report. So just want to make that clarification.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, and then if I have no further discussion, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, motion carries on the personnel report. Thank you. All right, and we can bring them back in. Okay. Okay, and now we have the policy development adoption. Okay, Dr.
Yep,
French.
very good. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So trustees, first reading this evening, we have policy 2710, high school graduation requirements, specialty diplomas. For those of you who may recall, it seems like a long time ago, we have some specialty diplomas that the school board agreed to recognize at graduation. STEM, which is a state, as part of the state has approved the STEM. We as a board also agreed to approve advanced opportunities, students who take classes above and beyond, and CTE completers. So what we've done is put that in a policy so that all of those that the board had approved, it had not been otherwise. We had just had the STEM. So that it was the change there to make sure that that was in policy. And then we also have policy 7408, entering into professional services contract.
Okay. All right, thank you. I would like to ask for a motion to accept and approve the first reading policies.
Madam Chair, I move to approve and accept first reading of policy number 2710 and policy 7408.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. I'd like to ask for a second. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on these two policies? Trustees? Okay, hearing none. I'd like to ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, motion carries on the first reading for those two policies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, trustees, second reading, 3560 electronic surveillance. This policy has been back to the policy committee. I did take it back again this time it was on for first reading, and they reread it to see if there's something that could be, if there were changes that the board had asked for or was looking at. They did take out 1.2 completely. That was a recommendation that was in there initially, and they felt that, well, maybe that would make it more clear that this was not, it wasn't meant to be anything evaluative for a teacher, so they did remove that.
Okay.
And you can see the other changes that have been made, but that's part, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see.
So Madam Chair, I do have some couple of suggestions, and so I have tossed it up to the board as well as Dr. mentioned. Just 3 minor changes, just to clarify what high risk area, what high risk it really is. Just sort of dial that in a little bit. It's one of the things, the trustees, one of the responsibilities that we have, one of the main responsibilities is setting policy. So I just asked to clarify the language. I know we've had this conversation before. So just wanted to put some sideboards. The legislature is always talking with certain bills. They always talk about putting sideboards onto a piece of legislation, just to sort of really clarify so that it's not super open-ended. So that's what I've tried to do with my recommended language changes, is to add some sideboards. And I realize we sort of have gone through some various different revisions of this policy, but now it clarifies specifically what high risk areas are. And so that includes places like the welding shop. Well, it includes the following specific areas: welding shop, auto shop, greenhouse, weight room, special education, classroom, and theater or auditorium. And so that clarification took into account the emails that we received from teachers about pros and cons of having video surveillance in their classrooms currently. So, at some point, if the district, wants to clarify this or add some other rooms into what is a high risk area, they could, of course, send this to the board and we could reevaluate.
Okay. Any thoughts, Dr. Pons?
Madam Chair and trustees, I just received these recommendations this evening, so I don't feel like I can speak for the policy committee, so that's probably where I'm at this point.
Okay, so let's see. So we could send it, trying to think what the process would be to send it back to the policy committee. And see, because eventually, okay. Just trying to figure out.
There's a number of things we could do. I mean,
Okay.
we could just pass it with the recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
If it passes, we could vote on it. Maybe it doesn't pass, I don't know. With my suggested
Mm-hmm.
motion that I have at the top. We could table it again. We've done it several times and send it back. One of my concerns is that we've set the language back, and we've sent this policy back to the committee with several recommendations. And then when we get the policy back, it doesn't really have those recommendations necessarily in there. I'm not sure what, there seems to be maybe some miscommunication on that front.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know how critical this policy is for the board. I mean, I think we started this, reviewing this policy back in, I think, May or June of last year. And have taken a look at this 4 or 5 times.
It's probably been a year.
Mm-hmm.
And Madam Chair and Trustees, I don't want you to think that there's a miscommunication. I think the policy committee has looked at it
Mm-hmm.
and they've debated it. And they debated the recommend, the suggested the recommendation. And there were moments where they did not agree with that as individuals who were working possibly in those classrooms and working in certain buildings, they felt that some of those changes it was a concern to them. So I don't want you to think they were just totally disregarding it.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to make sure that it works for everyone and the board. So I just so that you know, and Vice Chair Manning understands, they have looked at your suggestions and then they've had debates over that. And what does that really mean?
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's the potential here for us to sort of, the policy sort of bouncing back and forth between the policy committee and the board.
Mm-hmm.
And then the board asking for edits, and then the policy committee asking for edits, and refusing edits, and then pushing it back to the board, and the board says, well, we don't want this. But ultimately, the board can decide to pass this tonight if we want it. This is the second and final read, and we can always go back and review any policy at any time. And
Correct.
get through that
change it.
process.
Mhm.
So I am going to, Madam Chair, I move that we revise policy 3560, the video surveillance policy with the following specific edits, and then approve for its second and final reading. And the edits are listed here.
Okay. I have a motion. So do I have a second? Okay, so it looks like. All right, Keely. My Robert is a law. I don't have a second, so. But it died. It died. Okay, motion dies. Okay. So then, let's see, can I get a motion to approve as the policy committee has the changes that they have made? Or a different motion?
Is there a way to discuss Trustee Manning's proposals?
I guess we can, yeah. we
Does
can.
that need to be in motion, or is that just open for discussion at this point?
Open for discussion. Open for discussion,
Okay. So I think that, so I don't know if Trustee Manning, if you want to go through each one and kind of highlight what your thoughts are on the reasonings for your changes or for your substitutions, so that we could better understand where that's coming from.
Yeah, you have to do that. So the first one, there are 3 changes. Again, this is policy 3560, video surveillance. And section 1.22, So if you go into the policy I've given you a little packet with 3 papers. And the first paper has the proposed changes with the motion. And then it has the policy itself on pages 2 and 3. So if you go down to section 1.22, it's towards the bottom. It's the bottom third. Currently, it says electronic surveillance will not be placed into a classroom without teacher consent or notice. So essentially what it's saying is they would be able to place video surveillance into a teacher's class, and they could say, hey, we're just notifying you, heads up, by the way, tomorrow, 5 minutes from now, a week from now, 2 months from now, whatever, we're going to have a surveillance camera in your class. And the teacher would have absolutely nothing to say about that. They couldn't say, no, I don't want one. Because if they've been noticed or notified, then that surveillance camera could be placed in their class. So I guess that's the first topic. Do you have any comments or thoughts or questions?
Vice Chairman,
Yeah.
I am a little bit lost, so I'm at 1.2.
1.2.
Yeah, as the changes that you've recommended. So I'm trying to figure out the.
So the first one, 1.2.
Yeah, I just see
Do I
the
have it
changes in
right?
there are that it's not, electronic surveillance may be used in school buildings. The only thing I see struck out is in any area. That's the only thing I see is missing.
Okay, no, thank you. It looks, okay, I was looking at the wrong one, I think.
Because to me, Madam Chair and Trustees, I appreciate that. Electronic surveillance may be used in any school, is used in school buildings, which that's fine. I mean, I can see that in any area, I can understand why that might have been struck out. I will say that we do use them in high traffic areas. So, and I don't know if that, I feel like that is, if we just say electronic surveillance may be used in school buildings on the school property, that really does cover a lot of it. So I feel like 1.2 really, it cleans up a lot of language. I mean, I don't know if there was the need to say in any area, because we're specific in where those are. And
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. So I was looking at 1.2 and then looking down at 1.2.2.
Oh,
so really we should start with 1.2 and I think that's it. My thought was for 1.2, again, that's in the bottom third. So if we say the electronic surveillance may be used in any area of the school,
or
buildings or on school property, so that sort of opens it up to like, anything. It's sort of a catch-all. So I would just sort of tighten the language a little bit. And my suggestion was 1.2, electronic surveillance may be used in school buildings or on school property and may be installed in common areas and other high-risk areas. So again, it's the idea of these sideboards to sort of limit. This is part of my experience. So in 2012, for example, my wife and I went to China. And in China, they have literally millions of video cameras everywhere. With facial identification software connected to those. And so they track people. So I'm not saying that they were going that far, but it's sort of the proverbial slippery slope with trying to balance, people's personal liberties with, electronic surveillance that may be used. And so my thought was to put just some sideboards on this to clarify that we're going to use cameras in common areas. So, hallways, parking lots, lunchroom, things like that, and high-risk areas. And then I further clarified what high-risk areas were in section 3 there at the bottom under definitions, which is in the last section of the policy, to further clarify, because as is, high-risk areas on the very last page is fairly open, includes areas that are an inherent risk to health, safety, or security. This may include, but is not limited to, courses taught in specialized rooms such as the welding shop, auto shop, greenhouse, playroom, special education, classrooms, etc. So there's these sort of these catch-all words like ultimately looking for ultimate flexibility on how this policy can be implemented. And my thought is, I know a lot of teachers that don't want video cameras in their class. And as is, the way the policy is written, the district could give notice to a teacher and say, hey, we're going to put a camera in your class. And they may have a high-risk student, so they may be able to sort of shoehorn in a reason, a rationale for, and maybe it's a principal that has a vendetta. Unfortunately, sometimes every once in a while, this can happen where you have personality conflicts. And I've seen this happen where you have personnel, administrative personnel who, maybe they want to get rid of a teacher, they want to send a message to a teacher. So they could, as the policy is currently written, they could tell them, hey, this morning, by the way, we're putting a camera in your class, and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it based on the policy. So that's sort of my concern. And so with the sideboards that I put in sections 1, 2, and 3, to further clarify what electronic surveillance is, how it can be used, and further defining what high-risk areas are. I feel comfortable that this is narrow the scope. The scope of the policy, which is fairly broad, still as is. If we didn't change anything, it's still fairly broad. And I understand that's sort of the administration's prerogative. I mean, they want ultimate flexibility. But as a board, we also have an obligation to vet and carefully analyze and examine the policies in their school, because policies to be set also set the tone to help set the culture of the school. So I don't know, Trustee Butler, if that answers any of your questions or if you guys have any follow-ups.
I do have some follow-ups. So on your 1.2, are you looking to eliminate after that, as it is proposed now, it says other high-risk areas, and then you have period, whereas the proposed is as deemed appropriate by the superintendent. Would you be eliminating that on 1.2?
Yeah, so the language that I propose under section 1.2 entirely replaces the language for 1.2.
And
And
can
the
I
same thing
ask,
for 1.2.2, the language there entirely replaces it. The same thing for under definitions. The language for high-risk areas also entirely replaces that definition for high-risk areas on the back page.
Madam Chair, and Miss here's China.
yes, that's my problem too.
Hirosaki, because I think, and she just mentioned just now that we need to be careful about saying all special education classrooms. They are not all high risk. There are some that might need some monitoring for the health and safety of students, not because it's a place where we have that violence. The other thing on high risk, if we tighten this up, we need to make sure legally that we cover every place we have a camera, because it's like a lawsuit. So if we have cameras in hallways, we need to define that we'll have cameras in the hallway, and that we'll have cameras here, because what we would not want someone to do is say, well, you never said you're going to have a camera in that location, and you did say you were going to have them in parking lots or facing the let's say I don't know, parking lot, outdoor area, because we do have cameras that go across the play yards at so many of the schools, just to monitor that. And that's why it's open to some degree. Otherwise, we'll have to be specific so that we don't get a lawsuit when we find some some youth maybe that are vandalizing, but our policy, it only takes one person to say the policy doesn't say you're going to have cameras there. And so then I have on a technicality, Does that make sense? I think we just, that's why I don't want to be offensive, but I think that's why it's open to some degree so that.
I would agree. I worry about being too literal, and we need to allow some flexibility. And so that statement of as deemed appropriate by the superintendent should either be maintained there or under the high risk area, and remove the et cetera. So saying special education classrooms or deemed necessary by the superintendent.
And then maybe there's a better way to say,
Well, section 1.2, 1.2 does, I believe, provide some flexibility. The proposed language for section 1.2, electronic surveillance may be used in school buildings or on school property and may be installed in common areas and other high-risk areas. So may, it's pretty open.
as deemed appropriate by the Board of Trustees? Or who's going to deem that?
Well, I mean, the policy is approved by the board, so I guess we would take responsibility for that.
And then I would ask, what is the roles and responsibilities? And making sure that, that I know the direction the board is expecting us to go on this.
My concern is under the idea of keeping the schools safe, is that there is some of that ambiguity where we're not tied down to specifics, or in the fact that we don't put out our safety procedures fully to the public, and in knowing exactly where every single camera is. And so somehow leaving that as an open-ended thought in some way to allow for that, so that we're not just telling everybody, okay, there is a camera here and here and here and here. So if you want to get over there, then if you go this way and this way and this way, you can avoid all of the cameras. That's what my concern is when we get too technical or too detailed.
I know that I've been on different policy committees, not just here, but in like at work and stuff, and I know that we've had law enforcement tell us, don't be so specific with your policy. And remember that policy can change as much, because the more you get specific to it, the higher the liability can be. I also understand right now that I know China's been waiting for this because of, and I understand Vice Chair Manning's information and his concern. But I know that, we've been, and because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to focus on it as much as we should. So I do have a concern about it being really specific to certain things. I'd like to ask Chairman Manning, Vice Chair Manning, the one on 1.2.2. So I don't know if I missed it, if I'm not reading it right, but so it says electronic surveillance will not be placed in the classroom without a teacher consent. And so
No, so 1.2 doesn't say that.
On the
So
1.2.2.
Right, it doesn't say that.
It says on this one right here, the policy manual.
So I'm talking about my proposed change.
Yeah, but the one, okay. So the one, it says on the one that's
Right,
on
without
there.
teacher consent or notice. So this language, the proposed language would take out the without teacher consent or notice. And would replace it with, just make sure I'm looking for the right one here, 1.2.2. Electronic surveillance will not be placed into a classroom unless it meets the definition of high risk as defined in this policy under definition. So I'm acknowledging that cameras in this proposed change. I'm acknowledging that video surveillance has a place, and it has a place in high risk classrooms. And so we've just defined what high risk is, clarified it slightly. The current definition of high risk is pretty specific. It says includes areas that are an inherent risk to health, safety, or security, This may include, but is not limited to, courses taught in specialized rooms, such as the welding shop, auto shop, greenhouse, weight room, special education, classroom, et cetera. So it does mention that. So
You can't say et cetera because you just said you don't like et cetera.
No, I'm just quoting, I'm quoting what it says. I'm just quoting what it says. And so to the idea of, specificity, the policy change that I'm proposing is too specific. Actually, this one is pretty specific as well. I'm just tweaking it slightly. So yeah, people are gonna know, if we pass the policy as is, without any of my changes, people will know there are cameras in welding shops. There will be cameras in auto shops, greenhouses, weight rooms, and potentially special education classrooms, et cetera. What my policy does is by changes, put a few sideboards on there to clarify and then to make it so that they can't, they can put video cameras into teachers' classrooms, but only high-risk teacher classrooms.
Then, again, I'm thinking about what China's saying about, not lumping special education classrooms into, under that umbrella, high-risk areas.
It's there now in the proposed policy. If you look under high-risk areas and definitions on the last page, of that policy, if we were to pass it.
Yeah.
And maybe I said all special education classes, and I do want to take out the word all, if that, wordsmith in that. I'm trying to look there.
No,
Actually, I don't say all special education classes. I just say special education classes, so the same as the current policy.
Okay.
proposed policy do.
So tell me this, if we have, let's see, if we designate one area that's going to be a high risk and we can't, if we don't have et cetera, we can't put a camera in there until we change the policy and have all the readings. Is that what the process will be? That's just a question that I have. Like if we determine that there's an area that we've got to put, and it's not
So you're
these
referring to
ones.
what we're
I'm just referring to leaving the et cetera in there.
And remind me which.
And it's in the definition,
Okay.
in the definition.
The high risk area.
Because I think yours, all it did was, well, it has changed, this may include but not limited to courses. And then you just include the following areas. So you took out but not limited to, and you took out et cetera.
which actually means that there has to be a camera now in all of those rooms. The way that yours is stated.
Yeah.
Well, actually, aren't there cameras in those rooms now?
Well, it would mean that there would always have to be, so, so the district could never decide, well, that's not a high-risk area anymore. Yeah.
Madam Chair.
No, because if you look under, if you look under 1.2, electronic surveillance may be used in school buildings or on school property and may be installed in common areas and other high-risk areas. So it's a may and not a shall. It's a critical word to understand the difference of it. And so it does not lock in the district's ability. If they have to do it, they may put it in.
Now, under your definition of what a high-risk area is, it includes those only specific areas. So all of those would absolutely have to be.
No, not according to 1.2. Electronic surveillance may be used in school buildings, may be installed in common areas and other high-risk areas. May, it's not required.
Well, Madam Chair, so as we're visiting about this, one, China would like to speak. But I'm going to say, so I'm kind of following what Trustee Butler saying, and I appreciate what you're saying about 1.2. I'm also concerned that now every time we want to do something, we're going to have to come to you for permission to do that. The other thing is that 1.2.2 does say electronic surveillance will not be placed into a classroom unless it meets that definition of high risk. I think that's where a little confusion is. So as a high risk classroom going to have a camera, we're hearing that maybe, maybe not. But in order to have a camera, you have to be at high risk. right? And so it's like, so if they're high risk, then they probably should have a camera. Am I,
If they're high risk, they probably shouldn't have a camera.
should, because you're saying they may or may not, but they have to
That's the-
be high
that's the
risk.
Flexibility for the administration to determine, is it a high risk area?
Okay,
Is
so
it
and then you
appropriate
need
so
to
that
make
way
sure that
it's
there's
appropriate?
superintendent designee in there to make that decision. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Because right now, there's nobody that has is been given the authority to
Uh-huh.
make the decision that that is or isn't a high
I'd
risk.
like to leave that as deemed appropriate by the superintendent.
I could accept the 1.2 change, the proposed vice chairman change with that caveat as deemed appropriate still in.
So taking out the in any area of, and
Right,
just.
cleaning up the language of that
Mhm.
1.2, but keeping on the as deemed appropriate.
Yes. Okay, so say that again slowly.
Okay, so okay, so on yours, 1.2.
Right.
Change to read the way you have it there. Electronic surveillance may be used in school buildings, which on the bottom line, it says used in any area of, so we're okay with taking any area of, like Dr. French said, we could clean that up and then take that out in any area of as it is in the policy. In the proposed policy, but using yours, but then instead of a period, put in there as deemed appropriate by superintendent, because we feel we need to have somebody that can make that decision whether it needs to be, if it needs to be or not to be.
So you're saying at the end of section 1.2 that under the proposed change,
Mhm.
keeping the current language and adding after that a phrase that says,
As deemed appropriate
"I think appropriate by the
by superintendent.
Which is currently in the policy that's being
Mhm.
proposed.
Yes,
Right.
So
just
I'm-
taking that
Okay.
in any area of, taking that out.
Right, just those 4 words.
Mhm.
So as deemed appropriate by the superintendent or designee."
Mhm. And then section 2, the second proposal, or the revision, your second revision, the 1.2.2. See, I thought in the very beginning, Vice Chair Manning, that, I thought, when I read this, I thought, oh, good, it's what, Trustee Manning had wanted, that no electronic surveillance will not be placed in the classroom without teacher consent, because I think that's what it was in the very beginning that.
Yeah, that was an issue, right?
Uh-huh.
And so then as I
So-
talked to more teachers and looked at other district policies, and saw that some schools did have cameras in high risk areas, I thought, okay, I'm willing to be a little flexible here, and so that's why I sort of tweaked it that way.
So, and so you're okay with not having any teacher consent as long as it's deemed necessary as a high-risk area
Yeah,
as defined under the definition. So we completely take out the teacher consent.
correct. For all the classes except for the high risk areas, correct.
Can I ask a question? Is there any reason to change that to a request? Dr. French, would there be a reason why a teacher would request to have a camera placed in their classroom
There may-
outside of a
yeah,
high risk
There
area?
may be. I mean, I there may be. Right? It's,
I hate to say that we just can never do it. If a teacher would like it in there, then
I'm trying to think if Caleb's ever been asked that.
It's rare, but yes, we've done temporary camera.
Madam Chair, in my 2 previous districts, that was just an option for a teacher to request that at their request, not administration. Just sort of is another piece of evidence to support possibly a qualifying test behavior that, the teacher wanted to make sure that we captured as part of the qualifiers.
And I think, Charlie, you want to speak to what this came about?
Yeah, Madam Chair, trustees, so just to kind of circle back around, this actually, the process of this, updating this policy actually started with a special education teacher who requested that we have video surveillance in one of our specialized behavior programs. Again, for purposes that's captured in the beginning part of this policy with regards to the health and safety of staff and students in those programs. So that's kind of where this originated. It did come as a request from that. And really going forward with that is also, in addition, as we talked about, we added those time away rooms at GMS. We also have some at Van Buren that have just completed as well. And really the purposes of making sure we have the surveillance in there complements our restraint and seclusion policy, which we do have. And it's very lengthy, and it talks about how we will always have eyes and ears, so to speak, if a student is involved in either one of those. And so this is that extra layer to make sure we're following that policy as well. That's what I wanted to say.
I mean, it seems like in section 1.2, if a teacher said, hey, I want a camera in my class, electronic surveillance may be used in school buildings, blah, 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 and may be installed in common areas and other high-risk areas. I guess the exception would be, I mean, why would a teacher not want it if, I guess, maybe it's not a high-risk area?
That's possible.
Okay.
So how would that read if 1.2.2 read as trustee Manning has it, electronic surveillance will not be placed in a classroom unless it meets the definition of high risk as defined by the policy under definitions.
Or as requested by the teacher?
Or requested by a teacher.
Well, and then my question to you would be, how is that different than electronic surveillance will not be placed into a classroom without teacher consent or notice? We will
Because
not,
that would be the district choosing to put the camera in
Okay.
instead of the teacher requesting to have the camera put in. But under 1.2, the superintendent may have those high risk common areas. But in a teacher's classroom, it would be by their request.
okay, so what if it was electronic surveillance will not be placed into a classroom without teacher request, consent, or notice? Is that a
So
thought?
the notice is the district way of saying, yeah, we can put a camera in your class no matter what you say, no matter what you think. We're going to notice you, and we'll put the camera in regardless of whatever relationship we have or whatever. It's the district saying, we're going to put a camera in your class with the notice. That's how I read that.
And I can understand that because we don't want we don't want anybody to fear that of
Sure.
being able to just arbitrarily put a camera in the classroom.
But would we need to have them define why would we? That would be my question. Does it circle back to how do we define that as a high risk? Is the
Or if it-
superintendent, or does it even have to state why we're considering it? Because that's a qualifier, right? A high risk area.
I think we'd have to come back to Dr. Branch.
Yeah.
Superintendent or designee. And she would be.
We'd have to
Yes
provide a
or no.
reason. That's how I leave.
Point of clarification then with trustee Manning's recommendation, it would take the teacher consent completely out of the picture, correct? It would just go to the definition of high risk area.
Well, unless we added in 1.2.2 where a teacher could request a camera.
Then I would make a recommendation that 1.2.3 would be electronic surveillance at the request of the teacher. If I understood, trustee Manning, what you were saying is the teacher does not have consent to put a camera in if it's been deemed a high risk area. Question.
Yeah, and you know what, I'm okay with that. If it's a high risk area, it's deemed by the superintendent or designee, it's a legit and we define what high-risk area is, then yeah, I think the camera could be there. But, you know, if it's just a regular, you know, general education class, that doesn't have expensive equipment, doesn't have kids that are necessarily, you know, a population of students that are likely to, I mean, I guess you never know. You never know what a student's going to do or what an adult's going to do. But I just, my thought is as a professional educator myself, just putting a few sideboards on this to clarify this, so that we don't create a culture potentially in Caldwell school districts where teachers are ignored, and where an administrator could put a camera in somebody's classroom for, you know, to intimidate them, for example.
Okay, so going back, does somebody take notes?
Well, I'm trying to edit the policy. Right now, we're stuck at 1.2.2. And do we give teachers consent? Will they get consent, you know, when there's a concern, or it's deemed that the area, or the deemed that it's a high risk area due to maybe there's several fights taking place, and we've had several reports of fights in this classroom. They're breaking out. It's like, okay, what is going on? You know, and our admin team is saying we have had 5 fights in the last 12 days, and they're all taking place down in this area, and it's originating out of this classroom. Is that deemed high risk enough to say to the teacher, we you know, first off, we have an issue, something's happening, and we need to either track it and figure out what's going on. So, you know, if this is during your prep and you have left the classroom, we'd like to monitor that. I mean, you know, I'm like, so what defines a high risk? Could it be that there are multiple fights taking place in that area? And then the teacher you would have to notice the teacher. It's not, and there could be ways to say what you're saying, you know, like, oh, or no, but if we have a lot of fights taking place and then it's coming out of a classroom area or in a situation in that part of the building, we may want to say that now has become a high risk, and we're going to let you know. And it may not, the teacher may or may not have even realize that's happening. They need to be on a prep period. Kids are coming in, you know, there's just a lot of things it could be.
I think the definition does cover that.
On
Current
which one?
definition and the one I proposed. High-risk areas include areas that are an inherent risk to health, safety, or security.
And I think that's where we put a period. Does that make sense? I think that if we said high risk or inherent to the risk, health, safety, or security, we were letting people know that we do have areas that have camera, right? And that's the reason why. And I think if we stated that, can high risk be something that's like, this is the reason, health, safety, or security. Then we're not identifying a special ed, which could be discriminatory. We can say to our ag teacher, we anticipate this is a high risk area because these things are possible, right? Right now, the greenhouse is see-through. So like, could anything go wrong in there? You can see right through it, but things can happen, and their chemicals are being used. They're using tools to plant, dig, and spade, and whatever. You do with your, you know.
Could be in a chemistry class.
It could be. So, I just wonder if we get too specific.
I like that idea of security period.
Health, safety, or security. What do you think?
Well, I separated it because I was trying to dial it in. I understand what you're saying. I mean, there are endless numbers of scenarios that we can create and propagate in our minds about potential high-risk areas. And that's partially my concern, is that we could determine potentially, depending on how you define it and how you want to shoehorn in a definition that any area is a high-risk area.
But temporarily, that is a true statement. I believe that could be the case. If on a temporary basis, that may be true. I hopefully not every area all the time. And I think that, and to me, Vice Chairman, that's why our policies need to be broad enough to absorb or at least give guidance to administration on appropriate behavior or what is appropriate and, what can we expect? And that teachers can be safe in knowing that we are, we're monitoring that to make sure that somebody who comes in, who may be a visitor who walked through the door when somebody else was walking through, and maybe they're not a visitor, but we can track where they're at and say, okay, there's a lot of ways we use the cameras, and it's not to get teachers. I think that would be the last thing we would ever do, and I'm happy to, if it's to take out the word notice, although I would tell you, as a teacher's consent, I would notice a teacher, like, there are too many fights in this area, and we think if we can put a camera here, we can see what's happening, who's coming in and out of this room, and who might be instigating that. While you're helping other students, somebody may or may not be. I would want the teacher support in that, for sure, because all eyes on, we can stop this problem from happening.
I like the idea of cameras, but I think sometimes we could use them as a safety valve when really direct adult supervision is better in a lot of situations. And so we're at a fight or a series of fights, a potential fight, or conflicts. A camera sitting there observing can do absolutely nothing. It just records what happens. But if you have staff that's on the ground, having conversations, building relationships with people, that's the key. So part of my concern is that we're allowing the cameras, we're using them potentially as a crutch. And what I think we need to be more invested in relationship building if we're going to have maximum security in our schools. Just some thoughts.
Madam Chair, just appreciate this, that. I don't see them that way. I do see them as a way that has assisted us and helped us in many situations where it has happened. I feel like our teachers, that is important for them, is building those relationships. And I think the cameras have been helpful and not meant to take away from building relationships, right? I think a lot of things don't happen because teachers have those relationships. That students come to school and they're proud to be in the Caldwell School District, and they want to make their school nice and they want to keep it safe. There are, however, incidents where and you may or may not be aware, but the students who are not even from our school district have vandalized our schools, and we've been able to identify who they are. And it's helpful to have SROs who have connections with other school districts, because we've been able to share camera pictures with other districts to identify who those students might be.
These are pictures from common areas.
Yes, they are. So I think that it's important that that I feel like our teachers are building those relationships. I do not propose a policy that is punitive to teachers at all. I feel like the policy committee really was looking at that to make sure that, that their teachers, it's not about evaluation, it's not about a gotcha, but it is really about making sure that people are safe and that we can, as students moving in and out around the building, that if there's ever an issue and there's ever a question, and sometimes it's not even about students, sometimes it's about the visitor or the person who's helping or the parent who comes in who's very upset, or
Sometimes the teacher.
and sometimes it does happen. That is true. And I just want to make sure that we don't lose the integrity of the policy, which is to protect the health, safety, and security of the buildings and the students and all the staff inside.
Can I add something to that piece? The other piece, again, agree with everything that's been said. I know some of the things that have been helpful when administration needs to conduct an investigation for whatever reason, because something has happened. A lot of times in the heat of the moment, emotions are high for all involved, and sometimes when we're doing an investigation and we're conducting interviews, those can be a little bit off, because again, when the emotions are up, sometimes we forget truly what happened in the moment, or we think something happened a certain way. and it doesn't quite jive, so we need something else. The video surveillance does help us piece together what people have said with what actually happened, and then it helps serve as a tool for professional development for staff. It helps us to look at students if we need to tweak any part of their support system. I'm speaking from a standpoint, sorry. Support system that way. It really, it's very helpful and beneficial to be able to look at that and see if we have any gaps, or to see the successes that we had. Hey, we had planned to do this in this kind of situation, and we did. Great, let's keep that kind of momentum going for occasions in the future. But it does happen when we do have investigations, because again, we're all human, emotions take over, and sometimes we just forget some of those important details.
And you can see who was there at the time.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that serves as safety to students too, student-to-student interaction.
Absolutely.
But, and maybe, and Vice Chair Manning, would you consider, what if 1.2.2 is just, we take off or notice? Electronic surveillance will not be placed into a classroom without teacher consent.
That's what I was just looking at to see if it works with that possibility. I think actually adding in part of what he said, unless it is deemed high risk.
So can we keep in there without teacher consent? And, or if it's been deemed, what if?
Unless it meets the definition.
Because I want to, and then maybe
Unless it
something
meets
else
the-
too, that the teachers has a right to ask for it. If there's something going on and like, no, there are things missing from my desk and some things are very valuable, what is going on? They come to their principal.
I see Caleb nodding over there. Like, something needs to be-
Can we just put some temporary cameras in here to see what's happening?
Well, I can speak from experience. When I was teaching at Minnesota, I asked for a camera to be put in mine because I had a girl come to me saying she was being harassed. And it wasn't necessarily as overt that you could see it, but the boy was harassing this girl. And we caught her on camera.
So 1.2.2, electronic surveillance will not be placed into a classroom without teacher consent or without teacher, a teacher could request. I want to see how I could say that.
Yeah.
And the area must mean an area must be a high risk. I don't know about I guess high risk, if high risk includes safety, security,
Then that would
then,
just,
and the teacher says, hey, Ms. Neal says, I have a student that's complaining about being harassed.
that would be the security.
It's the safety of the student.
Yeah.
And that fills the definition that includes areas that are inherent risk to health, safety, and security.
I'm gonna, while you're talking, I will try to put this in, because I do want to give teachers the opportunity to request it, just like the teacher has asked of China.
Yeah, because I'd like to pass it to
I
me.
don't know if that's 1.2.3, teacher may request.
Sure, I can do
If
that.
we could, yeah, because it would change the.
Yeah, because we're talking about without, and now we're saying with.
So in the first one, 1.2, take away in any area of, take that away. And then 1.2.2, electronic surveillance will not be placed into a classroom without teacher consent. Do we want to put or notice or take or notice out?
Notice is a part that I really
Okay. Okay, so take that out and then put unless it meets the definition of high risk as defined in this policy under definitions. And then in the definitions, change it to just end at security.
I'm adding a 1.2.3.
Oh, and then, 1.2.3.
With teacher, with.
Electronic surveillance can be
Yeah.
upon
Maybe
teacher
maybe
request.
added into a classroom. with
Maybe
teacher.
add it to the classroom.
Maybe added to a classroom.
I'm trying to
Or
stay with
teacher
the same
request.
kind of language.
Yes. Maybe place this. The teacher-
Upon the teacher request. I'm sorry, my screen froze. Madam Chair, on 1.2.2, Vice Chair Manning, how did you read that?
So
I'm taking out or notice.
Taking out notice. Electronic surveillance will not be placed into a classroom without teacher consent. unless it meets the definition of high risk,
Yeah. Unless it-
as
Okay.
defined,
Unless it is deemed high risk.
unless it is deemed high risk.
Yeah, because we know high risk is by the definition.
Mhm,
Yeah, I don't think, I think people need to go down and look, what does that mean?
mhm.
Because we do have a
Unless it
definition.
is deemed high risk.
So I have electronic surveillance will not be placed into a classroom without teacher consent unless it is deemed high risk,
Yes.
period.
Mhm.
1.2.3, electronic surveillance may be placed in a classroom upon
Into a
teacher
classroom.
request.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then I took out in any area of in 1.2.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
high risk area,
And then definition, high risk. And just stop at security.
I think it covers us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think so.
And then it doesn't, like, if we didn't specifically name it, and now are we in
Yeah. I'm cool with that.
liable with that?
Cool with that?
Okay.
And I'll make sure Keely gets all my notes.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
it's just in, it's just in, I mean, we're not leaving in, it's just any area of.
That's what's coming out. I'll give you this. And I'll give you
Okay.
this one.
So then at this time,
So how do we process?
so.
Madam Chair.
Can we, yeah,
I move that we approve policy.
Make a motion.
3560,
okay, yes, yes.
The second and final reading of policy 3560 with the amendment or with the changes that we have made tonight. Correction.
Hopefully we have those written down.
Oh, that's a good question. So that is a good question. The panel is asking, this is actually quite a change. It's not an errata revision, so the public hasn't seen these changes already. So it probably needs to stay on a second reading for another 30 days with changes, because otherwise the public can't give input on it, right?
Okay, that's-
So we need to, I appreciate that,
Okay.
because
Mhm.
it is a big change from what it was.
Okay,
And then that
Teachers-
will allow us to look through as well. Make sure.
Teachers haven't seen it,
okay,
and the policy committee, as I said, they haven't seen it either.
okay.
Right, and that's like, oh, okay.
We just thought. we
You're
were-
giving Travis another 30 days.
Madam Chair, I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
I recommend.
Okay,
I appreciate
so-
that.
Recommend it would be, it would change. Does
The
that mean we
motion needs
table
to
it?
be that we keep it at second reading.
Okay.
Right, so
With
does
the
that mean we have to
recommendation.
table it?
No,
With the
Or
recommendations.
With the recommendations?
mhm. Yes,
So
so.
Madam Chair, I move that we
There we
table
go.
the second reading of policy 3560 until it can go through a final revision
Yeah,
With the-
that's
with
good. Thank
policy
you.
committee,
with the recommendations.
with the recommendations. that
You're
we
like-
made tonight.
Okay. Second,
So if we do,
Hang on, Committee.
Stop talking.
I mean, if we do with the recommendations of the policy committee, this is the ping pong. thing. And then we send it back to policy.
No,
committee,
no,
and they go,
that's not what I
"Oh,
heard.
no,
This, what I understand is this is going out for 30 days for people to review, because the public has the right to review policy.
Mhm.
And that's significant change. I'm not taking this back to the policy committee, but they also can review it as a public,
Mhm.
as members and staff of the district.
Mhm.
So,
So I just,
change it.
so yeah, so I amend my motion to, I move to table the second reading of policy 3560. Till our next regular board meeting. Yes,
Table
With the
policy
changes.
3560.
but to include, but to
Recommended-
include the
with
revisions.
with recommendations made at this meeting.
Mhm.
That's what I have.
Okay.
That, yeah, that one.
That way it
That way
doesn't have
gives
to be
all-
moved back.
Yeah,
to
it gives
policy.
all staff a chance to look at it, it gives the public a chance to look at it
Okay.
and provide feedback.
Thank you, Lee.
Great discussion.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, can I get the motion again? I don't know who made it. Okay, so you made first, so who seconded it? There, Gordon.
Second.
Okay. So then I need to vote.
Oh, yes.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Those opposed? Okay, so it's.
read it tomorrow.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, so we're gonna table it give it 30 days so we can wrap it up.
You don't let it percolate.
Percolate.
So I said, we're giving Travis another 30 days.
Well, we're gonna make it on in about a year and a half.
Okay, where are we at? All right, let me find.
Hey,
my
Travis, I gotta
notes.
say thank you. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah,
For Paul,
I'm glad
you
you
guys
guys
for
were able
having
to.
this, that we need to have this discussion. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And,
Thank you,
and
everybody.
finding a way to,
We'll work together as a group. there.
okay. So thank you. All right, so now, information only. March 12th, 2021 is the end of the third quarter. Yay. Fourth quarter begins March 15th, 2021. And then we have parent-teacher conferences, March 15th through the 19th of 2021. There will be no school, March 19th. Spring break will be March 22nd to 26th of 2021. And then March 29th, school resumes. And then I wanted to
For
remind
everybody, in person.
for everybody in person,
Yeah.
K through 12.
COA.
K through 12. And then I also wanted to remind everybody, I know you wanted to hear this all along, but Sunday, March 14th is daylight savings time, so don't forget to move your clocks. Wherever, wake up earlier. Yeah, is all I can remember. Wake up earlier. And then next Monday, March 15th. Yay, it's a Monday and we get to meet again. Our board work session will be at Syringa Middle School at 6 p.m.
And Madam Chair and trustees,
Yes.
we are taking a tour. There'll be a quorum of the board posted at 5:30 so that you can take a tour and see the improvements made at Syringa so far.
That's at 6.
5:30. 5:30 would be the tour, but the
5:30 is
meeting's at
tour
6.
and the meeting is at 6. The board session. Okay, all
And
right.
that works,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That
yeah.
works for you? Okay, awesome. Okay.
Might be in my work.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Bring them in. Okay, and now I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Most to adjourn.
Okay, second, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor?